How did I become a speech language pathologist? Let's talk about it. My name is Maurice Goodwin, and I have been a speech language pathologist for about 7 years now. If you ask any speech pathologist how they got into the field, you're going to hear a whole number of different stories and different inspirations and different reasons why. My journey starts all the way back to when I was a kid. I grew up in a family of singers and musicians. My mother is an excellent singer. I have two older sisters that also are singers, and I was highly interested in music and performance. So all the way through junior high and high school, instead of playing sports or doing other things, I was definitely the kid in choir, high school musicals, show choir, and was pretty highly involved in my church at that time, singing in choirs. And as I got older into high school, directing choirs and leading worship. When I got to the end of my high school career, I definitely did not know what a speech language pathologist was, so I did not go to school for speech pathology. I went to school for music. And I studied music at two universities. The first university was a small Christian college outside of Philadelphia. I transferred out of that school in my senior year of college and went to Shenandoah University in Winchester, Virginia. At Shenandoah University, I studied vocal performance, and in that program specifically, I studied classical music, which was a little bit of a departure from the music that I had grown up singing, both in school and in show choir, but definitely in church with gospel music and other like contemporary Christian music. And I really enjoyed my time studying classical music. I enjoyed the discipline of it. I enjoyed my teachers and professors, and I certainly enjoyed the people that I met while I was studying there. However, I pretty quickly knew that I, one, didn't really have the talent to exist as a like classical or a traditional classical music singer, but I also just didn't have the desire to build a career as a solo performer. So it was around the end of my junior year of college that I was encouraged to kind of explore some other things outside of a graduate degree in vocal performance, which would be kind of the typical track for someone interested in performing. And that journey of trying to figure out what else I could do with this background in music and this background in using my voice led me towards speech pathology. The very first academic voice conference that I attended was the Voice Foundation Conference, which happens every year in Philadelphia. So I remember being 23 years old and sending an email to the organizers of the conference asking if I could volunteer for the conference because I, at that time, had no money to actually afford to travel and pay to attend a conference that was a couple $100s. They thankfully said yes, and I attended the conference in May of 2023. And it was at that conference that, for the first time, I interacted with speech pathologists. I interacted with people who had studied voice pedagogy. I interacted with people who had their PhD and their DMA, and I interacted with MDs and laryngologists and all sorts of people that were interested in voice health and how the voice worked. It was at that conference that I met one of my graduate school mentors, Kitty Verdolini Abbott, who helped kind of guide my path from that conference forward. 1 year later, in April 2014, I graduated from Shenandoah University with an undergraduate degree in vocal performance. At this point, at the point of graduation, I knew I wanted to go into speech pathology, but because I did not have an undergraduate degree in communication sciences and disorders, I had to do what they call like a post-bac in speech pathology. And a post-bac program is probably anywhere from like 7 to 9 required courses that gives you the prerequisites required before beginning graduate school. Because of the connection that I made with Dr. Verdolini at Voice Foundation, I had a strong interest in attending the University of Pittsburgh, where she was a professor in voice. So I applied and got accepted to the post-bac program, which was about 9 months long. But at the end of that 9 months, I then had to apply for graduate school in speech pathology. Graduate programs in speech pathology are about 2 years long, and some can be a little bit longer depending on, once again, if you had done your prerequisites. But the graduate program at the University of Pittsburgh was 2 years long. It was in the post-bac program that I really solidified my desire to become a speech pathologist with a special interest in voice disorders and just voice function. So when looking for a graduate program, I applied to a bunch of different graduate programs all around the country that would allow me either the opportunity to work with someone that was also a specialist in voice disorders, have clinical externship in voice disorders, or maybe do some research in voice disorders. I applied all over the place and only actually got accepted to one program out of the many that I applied to. And I was waitlisted at the University of Pittsburgh, which is where I wanted to go. So I accepted my position in this other program, still hoping that I would get into the University of Pittsburgh, which is where I did my post-bac, and honestly where I had already started to like establish roots and it worked out. Very, very thankfully, I got to attend the University of Pittsburgh for my graduate program in speech pathology. It was at this graduate program that I really dug into my special interest in voice disorders. I had the opportunity to do clinical placements at the University of Pittsburgh Voice Center. I got to do a couple inpatient placements where I got to work in dysphagia and head and neck cancer. I did a couple pediatric placements, both outpatient, early intervention, and also inpatient feeding and swallowing with little tiny NICU babies. So my time in graduate school was full of unique clinical experiences that really helped prepare me for after graduate school. In graduate school, I also got to develop a thesis project with Dr. Ferdolini and Dr. Amanda Gillespie, who is still a close friend and mentor of mine. And the two of them really helped further shape my own interest and desire and trained me basically in how to do this work both clinically and from kind of an academic research perspective. After 2 years of graduate school, we are required to do a clinical fellowship. And similar to graduate school, there are specific clinical fellowships that help prepare you for areas that you're most interested in practicing in. And so once again, 2 years after applying to graduate school, I applied to clinical fellowships all over the country. And in what can only be described as kind of a chaotic, very competitive process, I was thankful to be accepted as a clinical fellow at the University of Wisconsin Voice and Swallow Clinics with 3 other folks that year. Actually, it's 3 or 4 of us in that clinical fellowship class. And the clinical fellowship was a full year-long program where I was trained in adult voice and upper airway disorders. I had the experience to work alongside extremely seasoned clinicians. I had the opportunity to develop and work on a research project. I was mentored and guided by really wonderful clinicians who I still highly respect in our field. And when I look back, it's wild that all of this came from my junior year of undergrad in 2013. 2014, I graduated. 2015, I started my post-bac program. 2016, I started my graduate degree. And by 2018, I had finished my clinical fellowship and officially applied for licensure and national certification as a speech pathologist. I was really grateful after my clinical fellowship to land a job that I had spent years now preparing for, and now I currently work full-time as a speech pathologist in the area of voice and upper airway disorders. I don't think there's any one right way to become a speech pathologist. I don't think that there is one right program. I don't think that there is one right path to do this. There's just the path that makes the most sense for you with where you are. If there's any advice that I have, it's definitely follow your passion and also prioritize your training. There's such a small window of time, and it's such a gigantic investment to take the steps towards becoming a speech pathologist that for anybody who's watching this that's either interested in this or who desires to go down this path, prioritize your training. Make sure that it is the training that you want and the training that you're paying for, and definitely dream big. Anything can happen. I'm grateful and feel like I am the result of hard work, a little bit of luck, but also great mentorship. And so find those mentors, the people that you want to work with, the people that you want to learn from, reach out, see if you can work alongside them. You never know how it's going to turn out. If you're interested in learning any more about my journey as a speech language pathologist, feel free to comment below, ask any questions, and I can either address them there or in another video. Thanks for joining. Bye.